So welcome to IvyLearn Fundamentals. We're going to talk about transitioning content today and the best practices for doing that. Joining me behind the scenes answering and facilitating the question panel is Dr. Kara Monroe. Also, Adam Borderstraw, Senior Instructional Designer, and myself as well will be helping you to answer those questions. Our presentation today is being offered by Matthew Pittman, our new Executive Director for the Center for Instructional Technology, and many of you know him as a friend and as a course developer. So Matthew, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for presenter rights, and we'll let you get started.
Awesome, sounds good, thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Let me pull up a couple of screens here, and we will go ahead and get started. Oh, sorry, there we go. Hopefully you can see my screen. I'm actually in Canvas right now, showing the statewide course template. So if you can confirm you can see that, we can get started. Perfect, thank you. All right, so in today's webinar, kind of wanted to talk about several things in terms of transitioning your content, and we're going to start with just sort of taking a look at the statewide course template. So there has been some slight revisions to it based on Canvas, and we want to kind of go over that, show you what it looks like, because obviously that's going to be the first part of you transitioning it, is understanding what the new template looks like and how to put the content that is currently in Blackboard into the new template. So when you log into IvyLearn, and hopefully you've all done that, you'll see your course cards there, and you can click on a course to enter it. I'm going to go ahead and go into my course that has the template in it. And the first page that you see when you enter the course is the home page. And because this course has not been published yet, I haven't made it available to students. I do see this notice here at the top that says that it's unpublished. And in the course template on the home page, in Blackboard, it was the announcements page. In IvyLearn, it's actually going to be what we call the home page, or a set of links for students to access the content of their course quickly. So below this sort of box that says this course is unpublished, you will see the most recent announcements. Currently this is configured to show the 3 most recent announcements. Faculty that are teaching a course can go ahead and change that under the settings option in the left-hand menu here, and that's sort of the main course settings area. But we currently in the template and in the statewide courses will have it configured to show the 3 most recent announcements. They can click the little triangle to expand and see the message, and then click view announcement to see the full text of the announcement. Additionally, they can always click on the announcements link in the main menu to view that as well. So announcements will be sort of the first thing they see, but in addition to announcements below that, they're actually going to see the course banner, and this would be filled out for whatever course, of course, that you're mentoring or the student is taking. And then they're going to see some navigational links below that. So for instance, we see the course syllabus here, there's a link to that, as well as links to each of the modules. This might be the first thing that you notice that's different in terms of how we do things in terms of Blackboard. We have decided to go ahead and rename them from class sessions or sessions to modules. This is to be in keeping with the standard language that Canvas uses for their navigational buttons. So the buttons on the left-hand side that you see are not really customizable. We can't easily change when it says modules here to a different name. So to be consistent with their documentation, make it easy for students who are seeking support, we did decide to go ahead and change our language a little bit, and that'll be one of the things as you're transitioning courses that you'll have to do is change references to class sessions or sessions or S01 to module or modules or M01. But the nice part is these are all hot links to any of the modules. So students from the homepage can jump to any specific module without having to go to, in Blackboard, like clicking on class sessions and then scrolling down and finding session 1 and then clicking on that, or session 5 for that matter. I can actually click on this icon or the text and jump straight to the first part of Module 6, which is the sort of overview and objectives, just like we have in Blackboard. These images are customizable, and in a bit I'll show you a really cool version of this that Adam did. So those of you that work with Adam or know Adam, he's done a really cool job with the Humanities 100 course, the Theater Appreciation, and I'll show you that before we're done here. that's pretty much it on the homepage. It's the links to the modules as well as the announcements. And from there, students can also navigate using the left-hand menu here to jump to the syllabus or the modules or the grades section. And I'll jump into syllabus next because this is going to be one area that is significantly different than how we've done it in Blackboard. So when you click on syllabus, you're going to notice that the template doesn't display a bunch of items like Blackboard does. We actually have the syllabus laid out here in text on the page. So you'll actually just be coming in and editing this as the mentor or developer. You'll click edit on this to add your specific course structure information such as the grading information, and then instructors will do the same to add their picture as well as in their information, contact information at the top when they get their copy of the course. If we scroll down through here, most of this is pretty standard text. You've got your section for the textbook information. We did try to make this a bit shorter. That's regularly one of the complaints that we get about the syllabus is that it's very long. It's like 12 pages printed out or something like that. So we did try to sort of use the functionality in Canvas to link to some information that we considered static information. So for instance, they can click on this link to look for some the recommendation about book ordering, how to order online books and needing assistance, and then they can click this hot link to go back to the syllabus. So we did try to shorten it up by doing that, so you will notice a couple of places, such as the college policies and support services, also a link to a page that they can go to find information on sort of that standard college policy information. And so that's available there. The rest of this is pretty standard. I did want to highlight one thing that is different, and that is down here in the communication section. Previously in the communication section, we did tell students, we did tell faculty and students that faculty should select one method or the other, email, sending email, or using messages in Blackboard. Because Canvas really has a flexible system of notifications, we actually have gone ahead and decided to recommend that faculty use the conversation feature in place of using send email or course messages. Conversations is the sort of equivalent of course messages in Blackboard, but it works very differently than it works in Blackboard. Conversations actually allows you to send the messages, and that's what the inbox icon is when you're sort of looking at the main navigation here on the left-hand side. The inbox right here is the link to conversations, and the advantage of using this is, say a student comes in here and sends a conversation to you. They send a note to you through conversations or the inbox. That message will then go to you based on whatever method you have identified as how you'd like to be notified of that. So you can set it so that it doesn't notify you at all outside of in Canvas, which would work just like Course Messages does now. So you'd have to come into Canvas, you'd have to click on Inbox to see that you got any messages. However, you can also configure it so that it sends that message to your email in Outlook or Web Outlook if you use the web browser version. You can configure it that way so that you actually get that notification of that message along with the full text of the message in your inbox to your Ivy Tech email address. And that is a nice feature, but it's even better because you can actually from Outlook reply to that email notification and it will send it back into Canvas and it will show up for the student in their inbox in Canvas. So you don't actually even have to log into IvyLearn to go ahead and send that reply to the student. You can do it right from your email. So that actually serves both purposes using one tool, Conversations. So that is one change that we did and one that's come up with most of the developers that I've worked with so far that have already started working in the new template, is that we did remove sort of the distinction between sending email or using sort of course messages, which are conversations. And the other nice part about this is students can do the same thing on their side. If you send them a message or a note through the course using one of the many little places where you can send a note to students, they can receive that whatever way they want as well. So they can receive it only in the LMS, only in IvyLearn. They can receive it via email or even via text message. You can set up all sorts of different notifications for that. So FYI, because that's one that came up a lot for developers. The other thing is we are going to use the course summary feature in Canvas to show a complete summary of all of the sort of graded items in the course along with due dates, and I'll show you that in an example course in a second. In modules, there's not a lot of changes. The main difference in modules is primarily the language change from modules or from class sessions to modules. And in the sort of structure of the module, we've actually removed some of the standard headers. So before we had the 5 standard headers that which included like the overview, the learning objectives and content, and then there was just a static header that talked about learning activities, and then a static header that said assignments and assessments, and then sort of that last one, which is overview and summary of next session, or summary and overview of next session. We've actually started to condense that, so when you actually go into a module, like say Module 1, you're actually going to see that we combined sort of that narrative element, the first item in Blackboard, the paragraph description of sort of this session, in as well as the course module and objectives. This is because, as you probably know if you've done any of the Canvas training yet or played with it at all, modules work in a very sort of next previous method rather than showing all of the content in that module on one page, like it does in Blackboard. So you click next to go to the next item and see that. So condensing items is another one of those things in the transition that you're going to have to do to really make the most use of the Canvas infrastructure or the Canvas learning environment that we have for IvyLearn. You'll also notice in the statewide template in Module 1, I added a little text here that just says, before you actually start this, please make sure you've clicked on the syllabus and read the syllabus. So that link will come in with all of your courses. Additionally, one other thing that we often get is, why is there a summary and overview of next session in session 16? Well, we went ahead and removed that, so there's just an overview. You can certainly still add that item that says, congratulations, good luck. I know we use that way a lot in Module 16, but that's been removed. So you'll see most of these modules in the template. They only have 2 items, an overview and a next steps. So that's the template. Were there any questions about the template that you guys had before I go on? Okay. I should also mention, as I'm just making sure I covered everything from my notes, that if you, as you're working through this, one of the reasons we removed the learning activities and the assignments and assessment headers were because we sort of felt that artificially made you sort content into the 2 buckets of learning activities and then assignments and assessments, when logically you may want to put them through a sequence where they do some learning activities and then an assessment or assignment and then some more learning activities and assignment or assessment. So now you're free to mix those up in whatever order makes sense, whatever is a good sequential order for the students learning, rather than sort of artificially saying everything has to be under this header or the other header, and they can't sort of mix. So hopefully that's a welcome change as well. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move on then, unless there's any questions. I did have one question I see in the chat box about how do you add content. Anytime you want to add any kind of content to this to a module, you just click this little plus, and then there's a drop down. Do you want to add an assignment, a quiz, whatever type of content you want? Discussion, external URL, which would be like a web link, and then external tool. This would be like third-party integrations, like My Labs or Connect or something. So that's what that is. Oops. All right. So now that we've sort of talked about the template and you've got a preview of what that looks like, and it's not too different, but so you've seen a preview of what that looks like. I do want to kind of talk about how do you transition. Of course, that's why you're all here. And I'm going to steal this presentation, I think, that probably Kara created. And so I'm going to steal this slide because I think it's really informative about how we're sort of suggesting that you transition your content. So let me jump into this slide real quick. So there's sort of 4 methods for building courses or transitioning content in IvyLearn. The first option is not really going to be an option for you because you won't actually be able to pull any courses from Commons right now because you're developing the statewide courses or transitioning to statewide courses. So this first option of the 4 methods that we've identified for transitioning or moving courses or building courses is not really going to be an option for you as a mentor, which is to go out to Commons and sort of find a course that you can use and then import it. So you're left with the other 3 options, which we have conveniently colored in sort of good is green, red is probably not the best choice. So your first option is to really just build your course manually from scratch in IvyLearn. And really what we're saying there is sort of that probably what you consider your worst nightmare of I have to sort of open Blackboard up and open Canvas up or IvyLearn and manually rebuild everything by copying and pasting. That is actually the best way to rebuild the course. It's the cleanest way. It's going to bring over the least number of issues in Canvas, IvyLearn. Okay, as you know, when you sort of take a course in Blackboard that has some weird wonky behavior, maybe the font sizes aren't all consistent, or it's just got some kind of weird problem, or it's for some reason that you don't understand, it's 200 megabytes and you always have to try to work with your regional online technology folks to or the ID staff to sort of transition that course because it's huge from semester to semester. That's all going to come across if you just take the whole course in Blackboard and dump it into IvyLearn. So our recommendation is really as much as you can using sort of this build your own course in IvyLearn, sort of having them open side by side and moving things over, or bringing over pieces and parts and then rebuilding other parts from scratch. And I'm going to sort of highlight all 3 of these methods in our transition guide and try to give you some tips and tricks on that, but that's sort of the first item is sort of building from scratch. The second one is bringing over pieces and parts. So maybe, you know, rebuilding from scratch is crazy. You've got, you know, tons of material in your Blackboard course and they're all different. So none of these 3 solutions are going to be perfect for all these cases. So you will have to evaluate what you think makes sense. The nice part is if you want to start with the worst option and dump it in there and see what happens, you can. It's very easy to reset the course and start over again if it like you dump it in there and you're like, wow, look at all this stuff that I'm not even sure what it's from or what it's for. It's easy to dump that and start over. But this middle option of exporting only what you need is really a good option. So you can come into Blackboard, and I'll show you the steps for this in a second, and just sort of like maybe take out test banks and discussion boards and bring those over, and then rebuild the rest in IvyLearn from scratch. That can be a good method. It helps clean up a lot of different areas and make for a cleaner course because there's a lot of you know, junk in Blackboard that has accumulated in the courses that have been redeveloped for years because in the content collection you're going to see in many cases that there are versions of files that you thought were gone because you took them out of sort of the item in Blackboard where they were attached, but they still exist in the content collection, and then that is going to surface and be way more visible and much more of a pain to deal with. So I'm going to demo all of this in a second. There's some questions about how do you move stuff in that. So I'm going to demo that in a second. The last option and sort of what we consider to be a painful option is to export a whole course into Blackboard, a whole course from Blackboard, and then import the entire course into IvyLearn. I will tell you that this is what I did the first time I did a course transition. I took our DBMS 120 course, which is a relatively small course in Blackboard, and dumped it into IvyLearn, and it took me a large number of hours to fix it and clean it up so that there weren't like all sorts of random files and pages and all sorts of mess in there. And after doing that, I realized that realistically, you know, using option 1 or 2, building the course from scratch or only pulling over maybe like test banks and discussion boards would have actually been a lot faster. I would have wasted a lot less time. So all 3 of these options are open to you. I think I speak for the entire ID team when I say that you know, we want you to, you know, be as efficient as you can. So if you bring the whole course over and see that it's not too bad, there's not a lot of junk in it, and it's easy to clean up, then you know, we don't want to stop you from doing that. We just want to try to advise you on sort of what are the best options for doing this and what we've seen from our own experience. But we're all doing this, you know, in many cases for the, you know, only 2nd or 3rd time ourselves. So you know, we definitely welcome you to try different options here. So let me go ahead and jump out of this, and I will go ahead and some things then in the actual process. So what we have put together, and I think you should have access to, if you don't already, we can probably link that out in the chat box, is this Blackboard to IvyLearn content transition guide. I know that when I've been reaching out to mentors to confirm that they're interested in helping us transition content, I've been sending a link to this guide as well as the webinar that you're on now. This guide is super helpful. I will tell you it is a work in progress. Adam just added a bunch of good information today to it as we learn and do more transitions. And so, you know, check back frequently because it is being updated and we are trying to log that as well. Basically, this is broken down. It was originally written from the perspective of that worst method of dumping everything from Blackboard into IvyLearn, but we've tried to highlight in different places where if you're taking that pieces and parts method, that's still helpful. And really the last sort of 2 sections are really helpful if you're just doing a manual rebuild. So I'll try to highlight that as I go through. But there's basically, you know, 3 steps: exporting the course from Blackboard, importing content in IvyLearn, as well as adding the statewide course template, and then what we're calling uplift the course content in IvyLearn, which just means, you know, make it look appropriate in IvyLearn. And then there's a section on other tips and best practices. So if you need the step-by-step instructions, you can find those here. So if you don't know how to do an export in Blackboard, you can come down here to page 2, and there is step-by-step instructions for exporting the course from Blackboard. Again, these instructions were written from the perspective of pulling the full list. So when you get down to step 6, you'll see that it tells you to select all in the image, but we've added here that if you want to import just selected content, you should just check the boxes next to the sections you actually want to include. And I'll show you that in just a second. And then you just hit submit and download it. So let me show you that process if you've never done that. I'm going to go into my SDev 264 class. So if you're in a course in Blackboard and you want to pull the export, all you have to do is scroll down to the control panel. Under Packages and Utilities, you'll want to click Export Archive Course, okay? And under this screen, you'll see an option for Export Package, and that's what you'll want to click on. So you click on Export Package, and you can do one of 2 things, okay? You can either, as I said, export everything, which is sort of the third method, the red method that's going to lead to bringing over every single thing in Blackboard. Or you can select specific sections. So maybe I only want the discussion boards and the test surveys and pools. So this would create an export file that was just the discussion boards and just the test surveys and pools. So if I wanted that, I would just hit submit. It is a queued process, so I'll go ahead and do that. And you'll get an email to your Ivy Tech email address that says, you know, the package has been created. You come back to this page and you'll see it listed here. Because this kind of takes some time, I went ahead and did this a little bit earlier. This is actually a full course export because I want to show you what that looks like when you import it. So this is actually the same process, just with the select all option. So I would just click on this to download it, which I've already done. So you'll see that here, export file SDev 264, blah, blah, blah. So I have downloaded that to my computer and I know which folder it's in. All right, so this could either be a full course or you know, selected pieces and parts. When I'm ready to go ahead and start transitioning that content and finding, building that into IvyLearn, I'll come over to my course in IvyLearn. And so let me come in here and I'm going to pull up my course that I built here, my SDev 283 course. I just used a fake course so we wouldn't get it confused with an actual course. So I have it in this particular course. So I've clicked on it in IvyLearn, I've loaded it. And the first thing I want to do when I log in here is I realize there's no template, right? And you probably want the course template because you're working on a statewide course, and you need that. So we do recommend that when you're doing this, you want to load the course template first, and then load your content from Blackboard if you're loading anything from Blackboard through the zip file. So to do that, it's really easy. You can actually right here from the first page just click on this import from Commons option, and that will actually take you over to Commons. And Commons is the feature in IvyLearn that lets you sort of share content between users. So you can share parts of your course, like if you just have a really cool assignment or a really cool discussion board and you want to share that, you can do that. And you could pull in content, so you can come in here and search for different kinds of assignments, quizzes, discussions, pages, documents, videos, as well as even entire courses or modules. In this case, you do want to search for the statewide template, so if you just type in statewide template, it should filter down. You'll only see one option for the statewide template, and it'll say statewide course template, and that's what you want. I have a second one that we used for testing. I should have cleaned that up. So you'll want this one, the one with 4 stars, and you'll just click on it. And then in the right-hand side, you're going to see a list of courses that you can import it into. You can search for a course, so if you have a whole big list, you can. Otherwise, you can just import it. I'm going to go ahead and import it in multiple courses. So that way, if you're a mentor for, say, 2, 3 courses, which I know many of you are, you can actually do this step in one go and have it import to multiple courses. So I'm going to put it in both of my mobile application courses. So I'm going to hit import. What's cool is it is very quick and it is queued. So now that I've done that, it says it successfully started it. I can actually just go back to the dashboard and start looking for my course to see how if it's imported, because you'll be able to see the stats for that. So let me jump in here and jump back into my mobile applications course 283. And you can see that it has at least brought in part of this template. If you want to see the status of the import, you can actually just go down to Settings. And then the right-hand side has a bunch of links inside Settings, and you click on Import Content into this course, and you'll see a log of the current import. And so I can see that was completed, but it did have one issue. If I click on Show Issues, it tells me that there was an issue with the YouTube uploader item, so we would have to take a look at that. But not a big issue for in terms of getting the template in. But it does say it's completed, so my template is in here. So if I click on Home, I should see the banner as well as all the buttons to the items, and the same thing for modules in the syllabus. I should see all the standard items. And so from here, I'm ready to, if I'm doing method 1 of sort of rebuilding this from scratch, then I'm actually just probably going to go into modules, and I'm going to start working in module 1 by adding in the sort of overview. And so I could do that by sort of bringing this in one screen, in Blackboard, doing the same thing, and then going to class sessions. If you have 2 monitors, this works a lot better. There's a bunch of stuff in this course. And then I would just come into class session 1 and I would start copying and pasting over the content from each item into Canvas. And then that would be method 1, okay? And so as you were doing that, you would just rebuild content item by item as you're going through it. Anytime you want to edit something, you just click the edit button, and it'll put you in edit mode, and you can start manipulating the text or lists here. So that would be method 1. If you are using method 2 or 3, then you actually, before you start editing this, probably want to bring in your content from Blackboard. So to do that, I actually would come down here to Settings again, where I was before, and I would go to Import Content into this course. Again, I see my list where I did the import of the template, and then I would select from the list. There's a whole bunch of options here, but we want a Blackboard one, and there's 2, but you want the one that says Blackboard 6, 7, 8, 9, because that's what we're on right now. We're on 9, so you'd want to click that, and then you'd choose your file. You'd pick your export file that you downloaded into the folder that you noted, so I'd select that. You can actually leave most of these settings the same. You could choose a default test bank if you wanted. Otherwise, it's going to create one for each sort of test. And so you can sort of leave that as default. That's what I always do. And then you have 2 options. You can actually do all content, which is just going to dump everything. And so let me go ahead and do that in this course. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit import on everything for this course. And then what I'll do is, because we had 2 courses, I'll show you one neat trick that you can use as well. So since I've hit import, you can see the file that I imported. You can see it's running and it's processing. But I can actually also just go back to the dashboard. Let's go into that other mobile application development shell, and I'll show you how to import. One thing you can also do to sort of see what's in the package before you dump it. So let me go to my other mobile applications course, which is 282. This one also has the template. I can go into settings, import content into this course. I can select Blackboard. I can choose my file. So this is the same process that we just did, but this time with some one slight difference. Instead of doing all content, I'm going to do select specific content. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit import. And what you'll notice is immediately I don't get anything other than like what happened over here, right? It still says running, it seems like it's going, and I didn't actually get to select anything. But actually what you'll see is once it's completed this first step, this should turn into a button that says select content. What's cool about this is when I click select content, it now shows me in IvyLearn or in Canvas what it's going to dump into the course. So for instance, what is it going to add to the modules? It's going to add 20 different things to the modules. So if I click that, I can actually see it's going to create a module for course information. It's going to create a module for class sessions. It's going to create a module for resources, and it's going to create a module for instructor resources, as well as my 16 session folders. That's because anything that was a content area in Blackboard, so any of those left-hand navigation items in Blackboard. So if we go back over here, class sessions, course information, instructor resources, and resources, any of those content areas are going to dump over as a module in IvyLearn. Okay, so that's what that's going to come in as. And maybe I don't want all those. Maybe I only want to pull the session information. That's certainly an option. You can do that and leave out course information because you don't need that because it's in syllabus. So that's one option. Additionally, you'll get to see here's all the assignments it's going to bring over, and you can see sort of what quizzes it's going to bring over. You can see what sort of pools. This would be the equivalent of pools, test banks that it's bringing over. You can see the discussion boards, what pages it's bringing over, and when it says wiki pages, it does not necessarily mean the wiki that's in Blackboard, the assignment that you can create. It just means the equivalent of essentially an item in Blackboard. And each item in Blackboard will import as a page. So you notice here that it says there are 128 pages that it's going to bring in, and that is a lot of pages. That you're going to have to sort through, and not all of them are going to be necessary. For instance, you see for each item that was in course information, you see an item for that, or a page for that. You see the syllabus, the printer vendor calendar, the course calendar with due dates. You see 2 items called FAQ, and when there's items with the same name, it is going to populate those over and just add like a -1, -2 across. Because in Blackboard, for instance, you see this item named textbook. This is an item that shows up in every class session in Blackboard, but it has the same content because in Blackboard you couldn't link to a page the same way you can in Canvas. In Canvas, you can create this textbook information in one place and then link it into every class session. So this is where I'm going to have to actually delete 15 of these and only keep the one that I actually want to update and link that one into all the class sessions or all the modules. Okay, so you can just see the mess of stuff that it's going to bring over. And this is why we don't necessarily recommend it, because you'll spend almost as much time cleaning that up as you will actually just developing content. And then you'll notice under files, it's brought in 28 different files. And so, for example, there's like 17 versions of this file called instructions on how to submit your programming assignments. You probably don't actually need 17 copies of that file. You probably really only need one, and link that one file in everywhere. So rather than having to attach that file in 6 sessions, you can actually just link to it in each of those sessions rather than building it that many times. Also, one of the things you'll find is under, you'll find this in almost every statewide course. This image right here is a picture that somehow got put into all the statewide courses. That's a nice photo of Dennis Dell from Region 8. So if you know Dennis, Dennis, you can let him know that we found his headshot photo. So that is actually, for whatever reason, somehow in all of the statewide courses and is being brought over to Canvas if you do a full dump of all of the content from the LMS. If I go this route of selecting content, I actually would just select the items I want. So I can actually pull a full export and then only import, say, discussion topics and quizzes and question banks. Because you would want the question banks. These are the pools which are associated with the quizzes. So maybe I just pull those over and hit select content. Then it will go ahead and just import those items from the package and dump everything else. And so we can see in this side, in my 283 course where I imported everything, it completed with 7 issues. You can review that to see what happened, and you can click on it to sort of jump in and see exactly like what is the problem or where the problem is. So it's highlighting that this is the question where it doesn't understand what the right answer is. And that's how you can troubleshoot what comes in badly. So that is importing the content. Once you have that in there, when you click on modules, most of the work you'll be doing is in modules. In this course, since we just dumped everything, I'll actually see all of my sort of standard modules from the course template. And then if I scroll down here, past the end of module 16, I'm going to see here's the syllabus information from Blackboard. So course information. This actually can be deleted because you don't need it. Same thing with class sessions. So this is the class session folder, not the actual sessions themselves, but just that sessions button on the left-hand side in Blackboard, as well as that sort of item that was at the top of Blackboard is now a page. So this below are the folders that contain all the information you need is right there. And you'll see below that all the content for each session. If you do a full dump of all of your content, I think one of the easiest ways to sort of work with this is to drag this up, which is not necessarily super easy to do, but drag it up so that it's right below the session that you want to work in or the module you want to work in this case, module 1. Oops, I got past too many. What actually is easier is if you minimize this so you can actually see the screen. And then drag this up so that it's below module 1. Because what's cool in IvyLearn that's not easy to do in Blackboard is actually move content from sort of module to module or in Blackboard from folder to folder. So I can actually go ahead and say, okay, I want this YouTube video. I can just drag it up here and drop it into module 1. Maybe I don't want all this stuff, but I want this YouTube video. I can drag it up. I want this YouTube video. I can drag it up. I want this quiz. I can just drag that up, okay, and add it in. One thing you should note, though, as you're working in here, you'll notice some of these have like green icons and some of them have gray icons. Green icons mean it's visible to students. Gray icons mean it's not, and this is called publishing or unpublishing. So if you click the gray icon, it will publish it and become available to students. If you click a green icon, it'll unpublish it and take it away from students. Very easy to do, but I will tell you, I've done this myself a number of times. You might forget to publish something, and then it's not going to be visible. Even though it shows up to you, and as an instructor, as you're going through this, building things, you can hit next, and you're going to see content that maybe is not published to students, but you'll just want to be aware that if someone says they can't see it, the first thing you should check is published or unpublished. So that's sort of the basics of bringing content over. I'll talk a little bit about what sort of comes over and what doesn't come over in a second. But I know there were questions about how do you dump everything. So say you've brought all this in, and as much as you appreciate going to files and coming down here to check out the headshot photo of Dennis, as much as you appreciate that, maybe that's not appropriate to be in the statewide course. You can sort of delete things one at a time. So what I did when I brought over my first course was I dumped everything, and then I went through here and I deleted like every single one of these duplicate items that I didn't want, which was a huge pain. Okay, and so if you actually just want to restart this and go with methods, 1 or 2 where you're just going to bring in pieces and parts, it's really easy to do. You just go to Settings, and then in the right-hand menu where we imported content, you're actually going to see this button called Reset Course Content. Okay, so this is sort of like the recycle or bulk delete icon in Blackboard. All right, so if you've ever done a bulk delete in Blackboard, Reset Course Content is very similar. When you click it, it's going to pop up and say, are you sure you want to do this? And you click the red button and it does it. Okay, so unlike Blackboard where you had to type in like delete to make it do it, here you just click it and everything is gone, which makes it easy to reset if that's what you want to do, but you can easily also dump everything. Now at this point I've reset it, so there's nothing in the course, so I would have to go back through and bring in the template again, and then also load in my section from Blackboard, or parts that I want to bring over from Blackboard. So one thing I want to show you real quick is sort of, you've seen the template, so you know sort of what we're going for, but let me show you really quick a course, what it sort of can look like, so you get an idea of what it should look like as you're sort of transitioning your content. So I'm going to steal Adam's awesome humanities course, which I thought I enrolled myself in. I apologize. I did not, so let me pull that course up really quick. Don't pay attention to the magic behind the screen here. Huma 100. And so this is the course that Adam did. And so you can tell it starts off very similar. The difference is we've customized the course banner, and that image on the left-hand side of the course manager can be customized for your course. So if you would like to do that, think about what you might want there, and we can certainly make that happen. You just need to work with your instructional designer, and they're going to get your banner anyways, so they can work with our folks to get a custom image in there, something that maybe makes sense for the subject matter. And then he's customized the buttons to sort of be related to the content. So for instance, on the spectators and participants, the audience section, he's got a picture of the seating. And then on through here, you see different photos. This is kind of a cool way of really, linking what this is going to be about. So the director and the producer, you click on that, I go into my module that talks about the director and the producer. Okay, and so if I go to modules and show you sort of what it looks like overall, you'll notice that in each module you're going to see the content is sort of logical. So we have the overview and then discussion board, then the reading assignments, because again we can mix these now. So the discussion board that sort of is introductions can happen before the reading assignments, which in Blackboard would not have been possible with our existing setup. And so you can do that here, organize in whatever way you want. Now as students do this, if you want to view what it looks like for a student actually, you can go to settings and then go to student view, and this is a really cool feature. I can then go ahead and go to modules, or I guess I could have clicked on the links down there, and I can actually see what does this look like for a student. So when I click through on module 1, I can see all the content. I can click the next button, which is the discussion board. I can participate in the discussion board, and then I'm going to hit the next button, and I can view the reading assignments, download any files, look at any websites, and then I can click next to go to the quiz. So that's one sort of way to do it, and that's sort of what the sort of flow is like for students. I'm going to go ahead and leave student view here. So I want to show one other real quick demo before I get into tips and tricks and answering any questions you might have. Let me jump over to, sorry, I shouldn't have closed that. Let me jump back to my dashboard. I'm going to jump into my other course that was transitioned. Then this is DBMS 120 once it loads. DBMS 120 is one that I did. Definitely not as cool as Adam's course. His is much cooler than mine. Mine doesn't have any real custom images in it. As you'll see, that's just the static buttons for this course. But when you go into a module, like say module 1, say you've got a student that's already started working on the course. They've already been through the first few pages of this, so they don't really want to click next, 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 next to get to the item they want. What I've actually done is, once I finished module 1, I was able to go back in and add links to the content. So if they want to get to these reading documents, they can actually just click from the overview on the read link, and it will take them to the page about the readings, where they can then download everything or view whatever they need to do. Same thing if they want to jump straight to this homework assignment, they can do so right here from the introductions page, and submit that or work on that assignment. And that's really easy to do using sort of the link functionality in Canvas, in IvyLearn. And I can show you really quick how that works, so you can get an idea. Anytime you want to add a file or an item to this, or a link, all you have to do is edit the item, select the text that you want. So say I want to link to the virtualization essentials item here. And then I have different options on the right-hand side here. I have links, files, or images. If I want to insert an image, I can do that. You can search on Flickr for OER images that you can use, or you can upload images from your computer. I can grab files from my mess of stuff, so you can see I still need to do some cleanup on this, or I can insert links. So say I want to link, and I want to link to the Module 1 page that is for readings. So I would look on my right-hand side under links, and I see pages, assignments, quizzes, announcements, discussions, modules, and course navigation. And since I want to link to a page, I would just come over here and I'd find M01 readings. That's the page where I talk about the readings. And I would just click that, and it makes it a link to that page. So now when students come to this page, they can click on this, it'll jump right over to the page about readings. And you can do that for anything. So, you know, say this lecture slides, I really actually want to link to an announcement where I posted those lecture slides. I could actually link that to a first day announcement. So when they click on it, it would actually take them over to the first day announcement. So this is kind of a cool feature and a nice functionality that maybe we didn't really have in Blackboard, to link to things the same way that we could in Blackboard, that we can now do in IvyLearn. This also sort of deals with that thing where you have a project like in session 13, but you want them to start it in session 8. You can do that linking functionality to bring them over to that assignment, or actually just import that assignment here as well. So it's a nifty feature. Let me just check my notes here. The last thing I kind of wanted to do, if we go back to the transition guide, I walked you through sort of exporting, which was the first part. We walked through sort of how do you load the template from IvyLearn. And we were originally going to go ahead and load the template for everybody, but in thinking about it, if you guys, you know, decide you want to try the full dump of your entire course in Blackboard into IvyLearn, you know, we decided it makes more sense to teach you guys, you know, the process for importing from IvyLearn and give you the power to do that so that you can recycle your course if you need to blow it all out and pull in fresh. So the steps for doing that are here, which I walked you through, and then importing content into IvyLearn. This just talks about how do you bring that Blackboard course in, which again I walked you through. And then this is the last section here on uplifting course content in IvyLearn. And so this is the part that you really need to pay attention to. These are the bullet points of what you should be looking for. So there's a number of reference changes, text changes that need to happen, as I said, class sessions, or you know, sort of that nomenclature of S01 or S11 for session 11 need to change to modules, module, or M01. Any reference to Blackboard needs to be updated to IvyLearn, as well as, and this one was something we didn't catch in the first place, was any references to course information or start here need to be updated to Syllabus, because that's where we'll send students in the other in IvyLearn. The rest of this, it's sort of a checklist, and so what you really can do is just sort of print this section out or bring this section up. It's just kind of a checklist of things to review in your course to make sure you've done. So making those textual changes to the new reference, the new language that we're using, and then just a bunch of other notes here. So in modules, one thing that we noticed is when you import content from Blackboard, often the files go missing. So you might have had a PowerPoint, you know, attached in Blackboard to an item, but in IvyLearn it will appear not to be attached. In almost all of those cases, the file is actually there in the course. So if I come in here, it is actually in files, which is hidden from students. But it just is no longer linked, so then you would want to go through that process I just showed of going to modules, you know, going to the item where it needs to be linked, and then linking it, you know, using that right-hand menu in the files area. And so that's what these sort of instructions detail. You'll want to think about, you know, how you had things laid out in Blackboard, sort of in this linear up and down sort of path. Remember, students are going to view this in a sort of next page motion now. So you may want to think about combining things. That's why we combined the session overview with the learning objectives and content, because really it's all just text, so why not give it to them on one page rather than make them read this first section, then click next, and read the next section, and then hit next. It just wasn't very user intuitive. So you'll want to think about that as well. Can I combine these things into one page? I also think the same thing about the links. If you have a group of links, you may want to consider just creating one page and then adding all these links to that one page and condensing it down so it makes the navigation for students easier. And so that's what this section is talking about, condensing down items as it makes sense. And again, there's no sort of one size fits all. All of your courses are very, very different, and so we want to make sure that you know, you're doing what's best for your course. Beyond that, you also want to go ahead and delete any unnecessary pages. Remember when we looked at that export and there were like 15 copies of the textbook page? You really only need one copy of the textbook page, and then you want to add that one page to all of your modules. So unlike Blackboard where something had to exist in one place and then you had to create it again if you wanted it to appear in another place, you can actually sort of plug in content in all sorts of different places. So you only need one copy of it now. And so you'll want to do that. And actually, I can really quick show a cool example of that. Let me get that loaded up. Another thing that we know doesn't come across well if you have quizzes, tests, and exams in Blackboard, so any sort of thing using the quiz tool or exam tool in Blackboard, that description, that paragraph description you've written is not going to come across. For whatever reason, Canvas is not pulling that in, so you'll have to manually copy and paste that description from Blackboard into IvyLearn when you import the test, if you import the test. And so that is another one of those things that's going to have to be manual because it just doesn't come across. And so let me jump back real quick and jump into my project shell for astronomy. In this course, if I go to pages, this is just a good example, and I view all pages. This is a good example of one of the things that you sort of have to clean up if you do dump everything. You'll notice down here this learning tools page. Really useful information if we click on it. It's like a guide for using, well, that one's not actually working. That's interesting. Oh, that's not the right item. Anyways, you can see there are like 15 of these pages where we really don't actually need 15 of these pages. We can delete 14 of them and just keep this one and link this one in wherever it's necessary. And then, yeah. So that's one of those things that you're going to want to think about when you're building out your, you know, your courses is, if I dump everything, am I going to get this 15 pages and I got to delete 14 of them? Because that can be a pain. Let me jump back over to the transition guide. We already talked about that. Make sure all the items are green, which means they're published. And I guess I'll just kind of conclude because we're running out of time here with definitely take a look at this section, read through it. But the things that we know that aren't going to transfer over to IvyLearn from Blackboard are journals, blogs, wikis, portfolios, and rubrics is a little hit or miss. So if you have rubrics that are sort of built out in Blackboard, those have not been coming over consistently or at all. So those items will all have to be rebuilt using the Canvas tools manually. So again, that's rubrics, journals, portfolios, blogs, and wikis. Also, if you are managing a course that has third-party content, so that would be anything with a MyLab or a Mastering, or if you have content that has Connect or anything from Cengage like a MindTap or a SAM, those links, if you're using standard integration, are not going to come across. So those will have to be manually rebuilt, and we are working with our content partners to put together some webinars. I know we talked to Pearson today about that for you guys in terms of how do you rebuild some of those links in IvyLearn. In many cases, it's very similar or the same as you did it in Blackboard, but we're working with them to sort of get that official how does this work webinar set up, and we'll distribute that recording as soon as we're able to do that. So publish your stuff, and also if you have any of those courses that have like SCORM content, so looking at you, School of Technology, those SCORM packages don't come across either, and those will have to be re-imported on the IvyLearn side. So questions, Kathy, Kara, were there anything that I didn't cover?
Matthew, I added in the chat box where we've now linked to the course transition guide, which is in the Faculty Resource Center. Do you want a quick demo how to get there? From the help button in IvyLearn?
Yep, I could do that. So, and my screen resolution is pretty small, so I apologize. Normally you would see this on the main section here, but if you scroll down here to the help button in IvyLearn, you're going to notice that there is a whole bunch of links here that you can take advantage of. Information about calling the help desk, submitting help desk tickets, finding information in the Canvas guides, and such. And so this IvyLearn Faculty Resource Center is the one that you're going to want to head and click on. And this is going to take you over to our private Canvas community, which we would encourage all of you to join if you haven't already. So I'm going to log in because I have joined it. And this is the Canvas community where we're sort of providing sort of the overall content, and you can find under helpful links right here the Blackboard to IvyLearn course transition guide. So you can click on that as sort of a hot link to get you there. Thank you, Kara.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, looks like everybody's sort of been answered. So with that, I mean, I'll just say that we really appreciate all of you mentors and the few OTCs I see on the call that are stepping forward to help us transition these courses. It is a huge undertaking, and I know while we are providing you an additional stipend, it is nowhere near what you deserve for the work that you're doing. So we just really appreciate your willingness to continue to help us keep the courses up to date and move them over to Canvas. So again, just really appreciate that. As always, if you have questions about your transition or any questions as you're going through the transition, we recommend that you reach out to your assigned instructional designer. If you're one of the folks that work normally with Sarah, who's out right now, you can just reach out to the ID list, or you can reach out to me. I've been the point person on her mentor courses. So again, just thank you. Appreciate, again, all the hard work you guys do helping us keep these courses going each term.